Voluntary disclosure. Question is, why should anybody comply? If they haven't been complying, why should they now? And basically is, you better comply before they find you. Because if they find you on their own, they're not going to be very nice. This is in the back of your book, but I want to read the quote. This is from the most recent IRS answers and questions. The IRS remains actively engaged in ferreting out. That's a really bad term. I mean, it's like they think we're crooks. Ferreting out the identities of those with undisclosed foreign accounts. Moreover, increasingly, this information is available to the IRS under tax treaties through submission of whistleblowers and will become more available under the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. They are coming after you, or us. I hope nobody in here is actually not an American, hasn't complied. The some form of voluntary disclosure has been around for years. It's as part of the IRS manual. Whether they have a formal program or not, the basic idea behind the voluntary compliance is if you come to the IRS before they find you and you tell them, I'm here, I've made a mistake, I want to get myself right, you have about a 99+% chance that they will not criminally prosecute you. They will want the tax, they'll want some interest, and they will levy penalties, but they won't send you to jail. Our newest voluntary program is called the Offshore Voluntary Disclosure Initiative. It was announced on February 8th. It has an end date of the 31st of August. They say they mean this as an end date, and by that they want you not only to show up, they want you to show up with all your information. The look-back period almost, well, as long as I can remember, when you had failed to pay your back taxes, the IRS almost never asked for more than 6 years. In simple fact, people don't have the records. It took a lot of time and administrative time. Sometimes they'd only ask for 3 or 4. This program looks back for 8 years. And part of this, I think, is because under the 09 program, they look back 6 years, and they don't want to give anybody an advantage now by trying to avoid those earlier 2 years. So it was, you should have showed up in 09. We're still going to look at the 6 years prior to 09. What do you have to do to get into it? You have to pay the tax. That's just a given. You have to pay interest. You'll have to pay late filing penalties, late payment penalties, an accuracy penalty. The late filing and late payment, by the way, are basically 25% of the tax you owe. So although there is a little bit of an overlap, that can run up to 50%. The accuracy penalty is 20%. And then I'll go through the other penalties that you could get hit with in a minute, but they're basically saying, in lieu of all other penalties that we could impose on you, we'll just charge you 25% of your foreign financial assets. If you don't voluntarily go in, and by voluntary, we're talking about going in and saying, here I am, I want to work with you, I want to pay what I owe. If you do what is referred to as a quiet filing, and you just file your returns, the idea behind that for some was, if I do that, they won't do anything with me. I'll just sneak in. Maybe they'll catch one of the returns or not. What the IRS is saying now is they're looking for these grouping of mass returns by individual taxpayers. So if they find somebody has filed 4 or 5, 6 back years returns, the impression that almost either they're giving, and most of us assume is correct, that it's highly likely that these returns will be looked at and probably audited. The second part of it is it's more likely than not, once they get them, they're going to levy as many of the penalties as they can. I can tell you this, before 09, when we had clients that came in and they hadn't filed, we got them, it was real simple. You're going to pay the tax, you're going to pay the interest. That's just a given. But if there was any viable reason why they hadn't paid, they had bad advice, even if they were just stupid, you could make a request to the IRS to waive penalties. And more often than not, they waive the penalties. They seem to be happy, we've got you back in the fold, we're not going to really crucify you for what your mistakes, but get back in, pay your tax, and off you go. I think it's highly unlikely they're going to waive many of the penalties now. I did have a client, he was mentally ill. We had 4 doctor's certificates that he was mentally ill, and they did waive the penalties on him. But I think just showing up and saying, oh, I forgot or I didn't know is not going to work very much. Finally, you've got some exposure to criminal prosecution. I don't want to go through all these penalties, but just to show you the magnitude of them. David's Trital is going to take all these numbers and these facts and try to give you a case study of how they actually will affect somebody.
The scenario here that we put together is one that we see as a firm every single day. We speak as a business to probably 40 to 50 people a week who have never filed US returns or have not filed for many years. We've picked here on Ginger. Ginger's a perfectly nice lady. Ginger's got 3 simple bank accounts with a balance at one point $250,000 in them and happens to own more than 50% of a UK company. Now, these numbers, when you get to them, are astonishing, and we've had huge amounts of debate and discussion within the office about the example on this slide. So we can agree or disagree between us as to whether this is or is not the right number in terms of the total penalty, and there are different arguments. We have somebody here who has not filed forms for 8 years for 4 accounts in total. The potential penalty is $3.2 million. The number above that, the $100 number, is the amount of US tax that this lady owes. The slide also goes to a simpler number, and again we argued internally whether this is the right or wrong number as to how much the same person, Ginger, might owe if she came forward under the current voluntary disclosure initiative and ignoring the costs of accounting and legal fees and other exciting things, or whether or not she's able to put the data together in time, the amount of tax that Ginger might owe would be reduced were she to come forward under the amnesty to $62,000. We have some staggering penalties on the statute in the United States, and bearing in mind that there is no professional indemnity insurance policy in the UK that would cover a UK accountant or UK financial advisor for this sort of level of penalties, it is absolutely fundamental that people start to comply.